The Sit Down is an always press record production. You ever wonder why people are the way that they are? You ever wonder why people think the way that they think? Well, here's the answer to your questions. This is The Sit Down.
Yo, welcome to The Sit Down. I got my special guest, Mr. Greer. Power 281.
Yeah, Power 281. Yep.
So man, let's just kick it off. Explain to us what's going on with Power 281, how we get started, and what's your role, man?
So I started Power Hits 281 back in like 2009. Woke up in the middle of the night because by this time I had an interview at a radio station here that's no longer here, but it was Hot 971. Got hired, went through the whole process. Next day, told me to come down and give my paperwork, blah, blah, blah. Then they changed the format. And then at that point, it was no longer hip-hop. It went to country legends. So I was so distraught, and I was like, dang, I'm never going to get that break in radio. And went home. Probably a week later, I woke up in the middle of the night. I said, you know what? I'm going to start my own shit. So I woke up, I said, you know what? I'm going to start my own shit. And that's how the whole idea of Power Hits 281 got created. And then from there, it's been going strong since, man. Actually, after Thanksgiving, it'll be, 11 years? Yeah, 11 years of streaming.
Nice.
You know what I'm saying? So, and it pretty much focus on just artists here locally that didn't have a real platform because you all know how the terrestrial radio is and the whole, issue with 97.9, how they kind of just have a hard time, really giving indie artists a chance to come on and get airplay. So I focused on that, and that became my mantra for the station, and it just took off from there. And then right now, it kind of spawned into some other areas of things. I guess we probably talk about a little later, but that's basically how everything kind of got started with it.
Okay. So I guess when listeners tune in, what kind of stuff can they hear? Is it just, I know you just highlighted, how you give good new artists a showcase platform,
right?
Which is great because that's how you network,
right?
But what other type of content can they expect to hear when they tune in?
They basically hear the same thing as everybody else play. You know what I'm saying? The regular mainstream radio, but the percentage-wise is a little bit different, right? I try to focus on is more or less like, 70-30. So I try to do it where it's 70% indie and 30% commercial. And then some months I'll switch it to where it's 70% commercial and then 30%.
How do you determine that? Is it like a way you can see what people like more, or
yeah, it is.
Can you tell who's tuning in?
Yeah, you can tell who's tuning in. You can tell who, where they're listening from, what devices that they're using to listen to the station as well.
Nice.
But yeah, so like I said, it's just I try to make sure I keep a regular balance. So, now, in the mornings I have Cheryl Underwood. She does my morning shows for me Monday through Friday. So she does her morning shows from 8 to 12. And then I have a popular DJ that was here before he moved to LA, and then who's now in Phoenix, which is the Crisco Kid. He does a show for me on Saturdays. So then I have a couple of podcasts that, get rebroadcasted as well. So like I said, it's a variety of things, you know what I'm saying? Right now this station basically is format of hip hop and R&B and stuff like that. So
cool. So tell me how you got hooked up with APR and Planet Perk. You know what I mean? How you stumbled upon acquiring and giving.
I'm glad you asked that question.
Giving us a chance. You know what I mean? How did that come about? Thank you, by the way. Shout out.
No, man. I worked with Trey over at Lone Star College for a while, and
That boy wears so many hats.
He does, man. He does, man. And worked with him, and we became really, really cool. And then we always kept in touch, even though when he left and I left. And when he told me I had a podcast, and I was like, okay, cool. I said, man, that's actually what I need. I need more. I want more raw content to put on the station because, again, you get to the point where everybody's having an internet radio station nowadays. Everybody's, doing podcasts or whatever. But, as an internet radio station, it's always the same music that's in rotation. You know what I'm saying? It kind of becomes more redundant, like it does with you tune into 937 and then 979, same music playing. So I said, okay, well, cool. I want something a little different. Even though I kind of had that same format, but I wanted to inject something a little bit more different. So when I started, introducing podcasts into to the segment, to the format of the station, and he told me that y'all had a podcast, I'm like, cool. You know what? I want that extra side of things. I want that rawness. Let me, you know what I'm saying? So I invited him on. And so here y'all are, man. So and I'm glad, hey, no problem, man. I'm glad y'all said yes. I was like, man, they gonna say no, you know what I'm saying?
Oh man. It's crazy how things be, man. I talk about Trey all the time, man. He wears so many hats, but man, we was in there just discussing that right before we did Planet Pert, and I'm like, man, it's crazy that first off, how I even came into it, just working out with Pert, and he was just like, man, just come through. I'm like, all right, it's maybe a cool little one-time thing. Man, turned into something serious, and then it's like I was telling Trey, I was like, man, it's crazy to be around somebody to where I was just talking to him. I was like, hey, Trey, man, I think I have an idea. Trey didn't it went from I thought of doing something like this to we gonna film start next week.
Yeah.
And to and to surround yourself around somebody when they hear your idea will not let you
not let it die.
No, we're gonna do it.
Life into it.
And it's man, here we go, episode 3, and it's like and before I knew it. So
and so the crazy thing
shout out to Trey first of all, but
the crazy thing is too is, man, it's like because
I know you went through it too when you started thinking about
I did, bro. Yeah. I did, man, and I made it sound so simple when I said I woke up and started in a radio station, and I actually tabled it so many times because I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what to get, I don't know the equipment, I don't even know, how it even works, and so it probably took me about a good, solid month or two to say, okay, cool. Now I know what to do. Now I know how to stream it. Now I know, the processes. So let me get it up and running. Because I think when I woke up, I went to the courthouse and got a DBA the next day. But then it was like, okay, now you got to sit down and think about and plan out everything, how it's going to work and how it's going to format. And the places that it actually opened doors up for me to go, it's kind of strange. So even with y'all starting the podcast, the dynamic of how everything can go, it's going to be out there. You know what I'm saying? Because I see how many people start podcasts, you know what I'm saying? And I remember when people were doing podcasts, I was like, nobody really cared. Nobody really said, you know what, I'm tuning into this, and
now you got the podcast awards.
Yeah. It's crazy, right? Yeah. And it was like one of the things I told Trey. I was like, shoot, you know what? Anything can be a podcast. Yeah. If you take, all you gotta do is rip the audio, right? So, and it becomes a thing where now it spawns to this big thing and this big genre now to where it's something on its own, where you have companies making apps for you to do podcasts from anywhere. I remember when Blog Talk Radio came out, and it was like everybody was jumping onto it, right? But they had the weakest server out there. You can only stream it at 32 kilobytes per second, and it had the worst bit rate ever. But it was so popular because everybody it get a chance for people to start their own platform. And so when the streaming side of things started changing, and then the internet radio stations started popping them left and right, it was like, okay, now you can mesh the two. Now, now you can have a podcast on an internet radio station. Now it's an actual show. So now people get on YouTube, and now YouTube has YouTube Live, and like I said, it kind of just everything kind of just starts steamrolling to where now that people take them vlogs and everything and just turn them into podcasts now. So and it's a good thing because again now you can have a documented piece of work later on for the future that you can say, okay, cool, this is what I did. And now it's such a big platform and a big area of entertainment that it can take you anywhere, man. there are basically no rules to it. You know, it's kind of like when satellite radio came out, right? You know, everybody was so used to clean, you know, radio edits. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Satellite radio come out, it was like they broke the barrier. Oh, y'all are cursing. Oh, they saying the forbidden words that you can't say on the air because the FCC is going to shut you down. So now with podcasts, it's like it's really free form. It's really that. You know what I'm saying? That freedom of speech. I can talk about any and everything. I don't have to follow a designated format like you have to do with traditional radio. I can just talk about anything. I just press the record button and then just let it all speak. So that has become a big thing now. And it's an amazing concept and it's an amazing thing now so that people can actually... Do you know that there's a network on Android Auto for podcasts? Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure everybody in here has an Android phone, but if you download the Android Auto app and you plug it into your car, and if your radio has, you know, Android Auto, there's a whole section that loads up podcasts all over the world that you can pick and choose from, that gets updated every day. And that's how big the podcast format has got.
Is Power Hits on satellite too? Can they tune in from satellite or?
Nah, I ain't got the bread for that yet, bro. But
enough.
But the crazy thing is, you know, the TuneIn app, which kind of houses a lot of the streaming formats now, is on the Android Auto, so you can stream Power Hits 281 on the TuneIn app via the Android Auto. So. Like I said, there's ways now.
So kind of break it down, like you know, going from internet radio and then you say satellite, then you know the like I said, the 979s and the 937s that we see, like the you know, the broadcasted, like, and I mean, I know clearly there's cost and money involved, but like, what else typically is involved when you break down the three levels, you know?
Well, of course, the traditional way was always, you know, the FM antenna transmitter. You know what I'm saying? So you had to apply for the FCC to get a broadcasting license and to get a signal. Then you had to find a spot, and then you had to, you know, of course, get the antenna, whether it's a digital antenna or it's the standard antenna, you know. But you still had to get the antenna. And, of course, you're talking about 20,000, 30,000, sometimes in the higher to the 100,000. So that became the demand for people that wanted to have their own, you know, broadcaster format, to where internet radio was introduced to the whole thing. So, because of course, you had people that were doing pirating radio, of course, not because I used to be at one, and then we got shut down.
Explain that. What's pirating? So
pirating radio stations where you're basically hijacking a signal and you're broadcasting over it. So it could be it's an empty signal, but you got a digital transmitter and you broadcasting on that transmitter. Now, the FCC regulates all of that and listens to all of that. So you get a couple of warnings, you get that letter in the mail, but then after you ignore it, then they'll send the people to your front door and shut you down and confiscate all the equipment. So that happens. But when the introduction of the internet radio came about, they cut down on the pirating radio stations. Of course, there's still some out to this day, but the way that traditional or terrestrial radio is now going, internet radio and streaming formats is now becoming the new platform for broadcasting and entertainment. So
would you say it's like a way for, you know, even the playing field a little bit, like, you know, anybody? Well, can anybody just start up a?
Basically can. And I think a lot of that shifted when Facebook introduced this live feature, because a lot of times, I don't know if people remember, Facebook Live was only introduced for celebrities and entertainers. And that when it initially got introduced. And then they opened the market or playing field for everybody to have that live feature. So with that gave another option of the playing field for people to say, you know what, cool, I can get on my Facebook page, talk about any and everything I want. And which essentially became a vlogging podcast, because they documented it, they recorded it, and it keeps it, and they archive it for you. So with that kind of opened up the floodgates of hell to say, okay, well, cool. How does anybody else get into this playing field? So that's when you start having the Instagram, and everybody else started creating their own live functions and everything. So it does level the playing field it gives the average person a voice with whatever topic they want to talk about.
Have you? Well, I know networking is definitely key to what you do and how you build your brand. Were there any key players that helped you, move along at the pace you moved along in? And because I know you had mentioned, a couple of celebrities that help you out, important people that help you out doing some of the shows. But I'm pretty sure there had to be some people that tried to help you on with the business, with just simply creating it. You know what I mean, with managing and.
Yeah. One of the main things, or the main people, was Crisco Kid.
Okay.
He's no longer in Houston. He's actually in Phoenix. Mm-hmm. But he was kind of the ones kind of pushed me along. He was giving me inside tips on what to do, what not to do from the terrestrial side of radio, because he's also he has multi-formats on Sirius XM with Pitbull, Globalization Radio. And I can't think of the other contractors with, but he was one of the ones that kind of pinnacle and pushing me and kept giving me advice. But as far as the managing part of it, I was the only one by myself. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But at the same time, it was one of those things where it was like nobody sees your vision like you do. So. I'm going around screaming like I'm starting an internet radio station, and people are like me when I first started. I was like, well, what is that? Like, can I hear it in my car? And so it kind of gets discouraged. And so you kind of find ways of how to network and like, cool, who do I talk to besides artists? But who do I talk to kind of give me that insight on how to make this work? Because at the time, you know what I'm saying, in 2009, there wasn't really a lot of internet radio stations out that were really popular and jumping, and that really had the ability to say, okay, cool, I can give you advice on what to do. So you kind of just have to learn the playing field and kind of, I made a lot of mistakes, but it helped along the way to get where I'm at now. So being at the time, I was a DJ, and that helped along the way as well, being able to network with other DJs and kind of just seeing how other people are doing it, and kind of just taking from that and pulling from that and say, okay, let me mold this into something that I want it to be.
Okay. So, you kind of brought up, like I said, when you first come out with something, a lot of people were like, man, what you talking about? And, the kind of shows to how hard it is to come from nothing almost, right? Like, come from no reputation, no type of backing. So I guess my question is like, I think about that anytime a radio station focuses on new artists and breakout, or people that are still trying to get somewhere, get what they were trying to get to. Yeah. How do you balance that with like with it being profitable? You know what I mean? Because I know it kind of, I know it has to eat you up when it's like, okay, I can play this commercial stuff, and I know I could be booming. I know I could be circulating. But, and then shout out to you for even sticking for 11 years to your same format of, I'm going to stick to, my roots and get these new artists out there. Yeah. So, I mean, like it's really interesting to see you do it for so long, but kind of talk about, like, the struggle. The
first 2 years, man, I actually know what I'm going to say the first 2 years. The first 3 years, man, I didn't make any money. I was paying all my licensing fees, because you still got to pay royalty fees. You still got to pay broadcasting fees. Like, I was paying all that out of pocket. So that was running me about $500 a month. You know what I'm saying? So at the time, my wife, which at the time was my girlfriend, she looking at me like, I'm not understanding why you spending all this money on something that is not physically that I can touch or hold, or, you know what I'm saying, I could have a new handbag with that money you spending every month. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how she looked at it. And then when she saw the dedication I was putting in behind it, and then she kind of said, okay, you know what? Let me back off a little bit, you know? And then she saw the late nights that I was DJing and trying to network and get the artists or whatnot, because people think that, oh, there's the plethora of artists out there that making music, and you'd be surprised how many don't either have their shit together, or they make the process even hard for you to even want to broadcast them, because they don't want to pay for spots, or they don't want to pay for advertisement, and they don't understand the format of, well, hey, look, I'm independent just like you are. You know what I'm saying? So we both trying to accomplish the same thing, but we both have to invest something in it. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people don't want to invest in it.
Yeah.
So
they can't see that.
They can't see the, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it was like, for the first 3 years, man, you know, and I go back, and some days I think about, like, man, $500 a month, 12 months, $6,000, 3 years, that was basically 20 grand. Like,
on a dream.
On a dream. You know what I'm saying? And I think about, damn, I could have been on this cruise. I could have went to the Dominican. I mean, you start thinking about that when you start getting close to rock bottom, and you ready to throw in the towel. It's like, man, I wasted all this time. And then that pinnacle moment comes in to where that one person says, hey, I got you. And that's when I got my first advertiser. And they said, you know what? We want to buy 2 months worth of advertising on the station. And I'm like, okay. In the back of my mind, I want to tell them, well, I'm just the internet. I don't have a lot of listeners at this moment, but I'm not trying to pass up on that check. You know what I'm saying? So when they cut that check, I was like, okay, I need to keep going. So I kept going. And which kind of spawned and led to other things.
So it took you 3 years to get your first check?
Yeah. Dang. Yeah. My first advertiser. You know what I'm saying? And
man,
it was tough. I was living in an apartment.
Man.
You know what I'm saying? I think my rent at the time was like $1,100. So, you know, car note was like $400, and I'm working. Hell, I was at the college. You know, making $10.25 an hour, and I'm up here doing a lot of other side gigs to make it work. So it took that 3 years, you know, and now it's like, all right, cool. So what do you do now? So now you got the first check. What do you do now? How do you make it work? So now it becomes more or less not just Power Hits 281. Now I got to think about, okay, there's got to be a bigger end game, like we talked in the last segment. There has to be a bigger end game. What do you want it to do? It can't be just streaming radio. How can you make it stretch across the board to reach all formats and all platforms? So that's where, fast forward, the second time I was about to throw in the towel. Okay, I was about to give it up again, right? And I got the phone call from Cheryl Underwood's management, because I had sent out an email just to see. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, how do I go about getting Cheryl Underwood to do a show? And how do I, you know what I'm saying, what's the process? Gives me a phone call. Hey, I want to give you a shot. And I was like, does it cost money? And I said, because if it do, I don't have it. And I said, if it does, that's fine. I don't have it. I'll take the loss and just. I talked to the manager on the phone for about an hour and a half, and he was like, "I'm gonna give you the show. I'm gonna give you all the license to do it." He said, "I'm gonna faxed everything over. Faxed everything over. I got a signed letter from Cheryl Underwood."
You was ready to quit.
I was ready to quit. I'm saying,
just think if you
just think about to quit, right? Yeah. And my boy Crisco was like, he was telling me, bro, don't quit. I'm like, Josh, bro, I ain't got the money. Mm-hmm. This man sends me $300. Hey, I know it's not the full month, but it'll cover something. And I'm like, bro, you don't have to do that. He's like, man, he said, I see your vision. So it's good to have people around you that carry that same vision. Yeah. Right? So I started doing the same thing. I said, you know what? All right, cool. I'm going to start giving people a chance. So I started giving people a chance to do shows. You know what I'm saying? So I have about 3 different DJs to do shows. I have the chick that runs my Facebook, that runs the station Facebook for me. You know, she does a show on Fridays. And she's all the way in Washington. You know what I'm saying? But she had the same goal, and it's like, you know what? I know how I felt when nobody wanted to give you that chance. Come on. You know what I'm saying? So when Trey told me about y'all's podcast, I was like, you know what? Come on. Because that opportunity, you know, and even if y'all stay for a year or whatever the case may be, the end game is, you know what? I'm trying to be like everybody else. I want that contract. I want that piece to where, you know what? I'm able to create content. I can curate it to where it makes us money. And I'm at the point where now you got people knocking at your door. Hey, we want to, how do we buy into your podcast? Now the sponsors are coming. Now, you know what I'm saying? Everybody's trying to buy ad spots on either on the website or, you know, within the podcast within itself. So that's one thing you have to think about was the end game. So that's what I thought about. And that kind of led to me going into Sports Fusion Live with my business partner, Christopher White. So that all come hand in hand because you never know where to start from because it could be a spider web of opportunity out there. And so that's how I looked at it. Like how can I make it transform into something else? You know what I'm saying? So I've always kept that.
Where did that grind come from?
Bro, I grew up in Greenspoint. Grew up in Greenspoint, man. You know what I'm saying? 45 West Greenspoint Drive, you know. Nah, man, I mean...
But like you said, man, you could have quit.
I could have quit.
It probably would have been more profitable to quit instead of spending
right?
$20K for 3 years and finally getting your first check. That probably wasn't $20K, I'm sure.
Look, when my mama hear this, she gonna be like, "What? I don't even want to know," you know. But no, man. I mean, you know, I think at the time when I came out, because I graduated in '96, so everybody was, you know, Swish House was jumping, SUC was jumping, so it was like, all right, everybody's trying to get a piece of that pie, right? So you had no other choice but to grind, you know. I mean, hell, I think I started my first job. I was a sacker at Kroger, making $4.35 an hour, and I knew that wasn't gonna get the job done. So it was like, you know what, you gotta keep striving and want more. Coming from a military household, you know, that's always been a thing. Like you don't ever settle. So, you know, so even at the times I thought about quitting, it was. I think about my mom playing like, nah, you don't settle, don't quit, don't throw in the towel, just keep pushing through because it's gonna come through at some point. It may not be when you want it, but it's gonna pan out. So I've always kept that little tidbit in the back of my head.
That's what's up, man. So, man, I mean, you talked a lot about like, you know, your business ventures and stuff, but who was Keith Greer?
Man,
who was that guy?
Keith Greer ain't nobody, bro. Now my moniker and the acronym, you know what I'm saying, my moniker is different. You know, I took on the alias of Grizzly, or 5'6" Grizzly, or the Greenspoint Grizzly. Just an average guy, man, that, you know, grew up on the north side of Houston, that, you know, had the dream of breaking in the entertainment industry. At first I was like, I'm gonna play for the Oilers, you know, but that didn't pan out. You know, I realized that my bones brittle, can't take all that impact. But no, man. I mean, just a cool average guy, man, laid back, that loves media stuff, man, graphic design, photography, the whole nine, man. I mean, just have that fetish for those things, man, and it just kind of grew on me. And so I used it, combined that with the hustle, and said, you know what, I'm going to make something of it. So that's it, man. Ain't nothing more. Super simple, you know, nothing too complex.
Hey, going back to, you know, you going through that period where you were beginning to, like have those thoughts, like, man, it's not me to do my own thing. What held you back?
Man, and even when I said I was about to give up, this is actually the second time me giving up was probably last year. Yeah, that's recently, man. You know what I'm saying?
So the ups and downs don't go away after 11
They don't
years.
go away, bro. They don't go away. I was at work and I collapsed at work. And get rushed to the ER, come to find out I was diabetic. So at that point, it was like, what do I do? I don't know. I'm saying, doctor comes in the back of the ER, hey, how long you been diabetic? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, no, you diabetic. So you got to make some life changes. Or your life is going to come to an end because everything going to start failing. So at that point, I was like, man, you know what? I've been running myself ragged for the past couple of years. It's just time to just let everything go and focus on certain things. And started focus on the health. And that's when I was just like, I just had to let everything go, focus on me. And when I got the phone call from Crisco and Cheryl in the Woods thing, it was like, you know what? Maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way. So I was like, okay, well, how can you make everything work? How can you make everything mesh? You know what I'm saying? And so I found out a way, and I just use it as fuel to keep going, basically. So, and I constantly use that as fuel every day. It's funny, man, because like today, people used to tell me, like, hey, you never used to. I never remember you being that big, man. You used to DJ back in the day, and this and that, and I'll never see you being that big. And I posted a picture today, and I just had to remind them like how huge I really was. And you would think that people would see it, but then they don't. And then when they do, they're like, okay, I can tell when you were actually not happy. And during that time frame last year, I wasn't happy. I was, like I said, I was ready to give it all up, man. I was ready to stop everything. I said, you know what? I'm just going to work a regular 9 to 5, go home, do it all over again. And then I got those phone calls. And that's what kind of shifted me back into it and say, you know what? Instead of focusing on what I'm doing, I need to focus on rethinking what I'm doing to make it work. So that's where I got the whole format of doing the podcast for people and say, you know what? Let me focus on everybody else. You know what I'm saying? And stop trying to make power hits work. Let me open the door for everybody else to use that format that I've been having for the last 11 years. So that's what I did. So I just opened up the floodgates.
You think your personal path influenced that format? Like, I know, we'll discuss how, starting from the beginning, you did not know what you were going to do, and then
right.
Slowly came together, and then ups and downs, and you finally got there. And it's like most of the artists that you feature are going through that, or maybe going through that, right? Like just starting, trying to, that grind, ups and downs. Some days they probably want to quit too. So it's like, I'm wondering, is that what you were drawn? Did that influence your format?
It did, man. Because I mean, it was a time where probably about a good solid year that I literally was working for myself, right? Full-time hardcore grind. And there's nothing like that feeling. There's nothing like waking up every morning and not having to punch a clock. You know what I'm saying? And I've networked with a lot of artists that said the same thing, man. I just want to get up and do music. I just want to get up, go to the studio, record, and make it happen. But the reality is, that's not how it works, So once you kind of understand and take on that understanding that it takes both realms, then you got to find something to push you and motivate you. And it does take those personal experiences to say, okay, here's the energy for me to get up and go clock in this job and work 9 to 5 and get off and say, you know what, I'm going to put in that same effort at that 9 to 5, I'm going to put into my music. Or I'm going to put it into whatever it is I plan on doing. And those things have to motivate you. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, those personal experiences, though, you know what I'm saying? There was time where I was 2 months behind on rent. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm investing money over here. And it's those things that keep you going and that motivate you. So, you know what? I got to go harder. It's nothing but ramen noodles and tuna fish some days. You know what I'm saying? That prison spread. But, you know, it pays off to some degree, you know. And I think everybody has that dream. And I know we talked about this before as far as like perception, how everybody was like, oh, okay, well, you see what's on TV. You see what's being sold to you. Oh, I need to have the nice car, the whip, the big chains, and this and that. And that's not necessarily the outcome for everybody. So you kind of have to know what the outcome is, like we said before, what the end game is for you, and what steps you're going to take to get to that point.
What's your end game?
Man, to be a media mogul, somehow, some way, some shape, form, or fashion, bro. You know? Me and Trey talked the other day about the transitioning of traditional media and streaming, on how that's going to be the new platform, which is already steamrolling itself into position to the point where FM dials will no longer exist. AM dials will no longer exist. It's just in the way that you receive television has already changed. Television stations, you know, but channels, dials are not going to exist no longer because everything has gone mobile. So you got to adapt to the new form or get left behind. So
yeah. So what do you see for the future of power hits? Like I mean,
just to be bigger.
Talk about, like, you know, this is a new step for you too, branching out the podcast. What else do you got in your vision going on that you might want to dab into or branch out to?
Television, live. I mean, everything is going media based. I must say media based, but everything's going streaming based. So whether it's, you know, the visual aspect or just the audio aspect, like the plan and the goal is to be a part of that movement and say that you were a stepping stone forward for that movement. So that's really the goal. That's really to be able to say, I can put my stamp in an arena that says I was part of the streaming movement, especially here in Houston. Because you have a lot of internet radio stations here, man. You know, you have Core 94, you have 95.3 Jams. I mean, Streets 93.3. I mean, there's so many streaming formats here in Houston that it should tell you where everything is going. And I want to be a part of that movement. And that's my whole biggest thing. Is just like, you know, try to take every aspect I can that's popular. You know, like I said, the podcast and the sports side of it, the blogging, the vlogging, and bring however much I can to the table for me and redistribute it. That's it.
Cool. All right, so let's switch gears.
Yeah.
You know, I know you got more tea than Power 281. So let's kind of get into the other stuff. I know you've been paying attention to you know, news and elections and politics, or do you?
Yeah.
You know, okay.
Yeah.
So I guess what you think about what's going on with these midterms elections relating to you know, the results. I mean, you know, this is Trump's America. So
yeah, basically,
like, did the results surprise you?
No, no, it didn't surprise me.
Okay.
It's kind of like what we talked before. Let's say it's kind of like you kind of get numb to it. You kind of expect it, and you kind of, you know. And so the crazy thing for me is, like, when I see people on social media, they get so much in the uproar, and it's like, you knew this was coming. Like, you knew it was coming. Why is it a surprise? Like, why is it a shock to you? You just, like, you knew Trump was going to win, right? Because all the outlandish stuff that he was saying, and he was catering to that dynamic, and he gave them a platform, and all he did was he dug up that grave, and he just said, put it on a silver platter for everybody, and then he got elected. You look at even with Ted Cruz, It's like you knew this guy was going to win, right? Just because of the fact of, you know, of the party that he's, you know, the party he's with. Now, for 1 second, for one brief minute, I was like, he's not going to win. He's not going to win. Because I'm like, Trump talked about him. Oh, he's not going to win. He's not going to win. And then you saw the handshake and the dap up, basically, and the, you know what I'm saying, the great, what I call the baby oil hand job, and it was all over. I was like, oh, Cruz is going to win, you know, and then sure enough, that's what happened. So, you know, it's funny to say the least, because now, I think who has the House? I think the Democrats have the House.
Yeah,
okay, the Senate, right? So now the only thing about Dems having a House is that now we can go and dig into his past a little bit and make him pony up those documents that we've been asking for. Now, will that cause some chaos and some bullshit in the White House? Yeah, it will. You know, but that's kind of like I want to see that. You know, I want to see the White House turn into a real live reality TV show, like right now. Like I really want to see that. Like I want to see the hair pulling and the weave coming out. You know what I'm saying? The toupees flying. Like that's what I want to see. You know, like because I've been waiting for this day. I've been waiting for that day, I should say, to come, because I've always said when Trump got into office that he's using this as a way to somehow make money. When he leaves the White House, he's going to set himself up for a payday. Okay? And then it's actually been a reality TV chain that's been sitting in the works waiting. That's what I honestly feel. You know? He's just using it to his best. I mean, come on, why would anybody else be out here politicking, you know what I'm saying, holding campaigns, and dude's like, dude, you already won. What are you doing? You already won. Like, you know what I'm saying? But it's part of the show. Yeah. And that's, you know, and that's how I feel. So when people get upset, and I'm like, you knew this was happening, you know? So it's like, what more do you want?
Now, when you have that perspective, like, can you blame those who, like, what's the point of voting? Because I mean, that's a subject, you know, that person very passionate.
No. I mean,
now, like, when you have that perspective,
I actually understand both sides of the fence. Okay. And I'm gonna be honest with you. Okay. Because I've always tossed up the idea of, like, why vote? Because honestly, I've always been told I'm a conspiracy theorist, right? So I always sit there that it doesn't matter whether you're Democrat or Republican. Why? Because they all work for the same umbrella. So it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, the bullshit's coming from the same toilet. You know what I'm saying? Out the same house. You know what I'm saying? It just depends on what day of the week you want to flush the toilet on. So, you know, I understand when people say, I don't want to vote. You know, because when you start looking at it from a personal standpoint, like, okay, so what has the government done for me or my community, you know? And you look at it and it's like, well, all right, well, and most of the inner city communities haven't done anything, right? And then you start looking at the state level, okay, well, what is the city or what the state has done? Nothing. So you have a lot of inner city people in the community that are depending on themselves to live day by day. You know, right? So there are no jobs. You know, the financing for housing and everything has become a struggle. So you got people, so I can't blame the chick that's on the pole every weekend. You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand it. You know, she got kids to feed. She's trying to make it like everybody else. I can't blame the dude that wants to, you know what I'm saying, literally to stand on the corner, right? I can't blame the dude that wants to hustle, you know what I'm saying, you know, fruit cup packs at school. When you have kids literally hustling fruit cup packs and bubble gum at school, that should tell you right there there's an issue. You know what I'm saying? And you know, you look at white folks and they're like, okay, well, I don't see that. know what I'm saying? Well, it's because you didn't grow up in the hood. You know what I'm saying? I remember breaking over annihilator packs and reselling annihilator packs for 25 cents. Just so I could have some extra money over the weekend. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's real. You know what I'm saying? Because mom's is working 2 jobs. Pops is working 2 jobs. You know what I'm saying? And they trying to make everything meet. Right? So when you fast forward to now, me being 40 years old, and you still see the same thing, like, okay, what has changed over the 40 years that I've been breathing on this earth? Like, there may have been some things that kind of structured itself to where, okay, it kind of give you an edge, but we will never have that competitive edge. So when people say, all right, I don't believe in the system, and I'm like, well, you know what? I kind of understand that too. Because look at some of the times we talked about before. Like, you know, I'm a black man, I'm helping out, you know, and then I wind up dying for helping out. Or, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's the system, yes, it's messed up. So it's kind of like when they say they don't vote, I understand you don't have that faith in the system anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I also, like, I tend to think about, like, you know, like that person is working at McDonald's, regardless if Trump or Hillary's the president, you still that person working at
McDonald's. Exactly.
You
right?
know what I'm saying? So it's like, I could, and you know what? Even on the flip side, if you the CEO of McDonald's, you still rich the next day.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care how many tax cuts you get, you're still not that guy that works for you. You're still not that guy making a minimum wage. You're still in wherever you are, living it up, doing whatever you want to do every day you wake up. So it's like there are a lot of people that, regardless who you vote for, they're just going to be where they're going to be, no matter where on the spectrum they are. So, I mean, I understand that aspect of, like, it doesn't matter to me because of what I do. Like, for instance, I'm, you know, as a teacher, I'm more focused on who the educational secretary. You know what I mean? I'm like, this lady don't know a damn thing. You know, and so I don't care who's the president. We got to fix that.
Got to fix that.
Exactly. Because, you know, as teachers, and when we see what's going on, it's like you said, no matter who's in office, most of them don't understand.
Fam, I'm gonna give you another example. Let's look at buying a home, right? And going to college. If I apply for a loan to buy a house and I work at McDonald's, right? Now, you know what? Let's play. I work at a retail store and I'm a mid-level manager and I make $35,000 a year. 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna get denied for this home loan. But if I'm mid-level management and I make $30,000 a year and I want to go apply for this student loan that's worth $250,000, they're not gonna even blink twice about giving me that $250,000. You know what I'm saying? I may have to jump just a little through some hoops, but I'll get that student loan before I get that home loan first. You know what I'm saying? So it's already set up to where, and I say that not even on a color standpoint. I say that on the fact that it's the system in a whole, right? And I've said this before, the government cares about the government. It doesn't care about the people, it cares about the government. So when you have the generations of people that, you know, as the generations kind of evolve, you know, they start getting a little bit more free thinking. You know what I'm saying? So I like to sit back and I like to listen to some of the younger folks. You know, and the kids be like, oh, well, you know, some of the older people be like, you know, they're not making any sense. But in some aspects, they kind of do, right? Like with me working in the collegiate system, you know, I look at what jobs are being hired for right now, right? It's more or less about skill set, not so much paperwork, but skill set, right? So you have a lot more jobs that a student can go to school, get a certificate, right, and leave and go make $35 an hour, right? But a person can go get a bachelor's degree and turn around and only make $30,000 a year into the job market, right? So the dynamic of society is shifting. So when you say, okay, do I want to spend $250,000 on an education and have to spend the next 10, 20 years paying that back? But that's if I get a good enough job to where I can finance paying that back and have sustain a stable lifestyle.
Yeah.
Or I could spend $2,000 or $2,500 and go get an 18-month certificate as a welder and come out and make $35 an hour.
But doesn't that also depend on like what you truly want to do, or at least doing your research prior to? Because I guess for me, it's like that bachelor's degree might make sense depending on what you're getting it in, versus that certificate. You can get a certificate in anything else other than welding or whatever, and you can still open and get into a field in which everybody's into, so it's not as easy as it sounds to even get into it.
But that's not how it's pitched, though.
What I'm saying is it still falls on the person before you even make that decision, right? It's like if you come in, because I hear it a lot too. It's like, oh, I spent all this money, I wasted this money in college, and it's like, well, before you went to college, did you even know what you were going to do, or did you depend on college to tell you that? Like, I can't speak for everyone, but I mean, maybe personally, like even in high school, I was looking at, damn, okay, I'm looking at this teacher every time. All right, well, dang, by the time I graduate, a lot of these older teachers is going to be retiring. So I was like, okay, now, granted, I ain't graduated on time. Like, it wasn't like I was a smart guy in the world, but it was still one of those situations where I knew that was going to be a secure.
So did you take it, did you go because it's going to be a secure job or something that you really wanted to do?
Both. I think back when I had my sophomore year, I was taking Algebra 2, and I failed it. But I was tutoring other people in it. And so I'm sitting there like talking to my teacher, like, how am I able to teach someone else how to do something that I cannot do myself on the test? Or, at least good enough to pass. Right. I ended up going to summer school and had to get my credit the hard way, but I, tutored other students on the final exam, and they passed the class and didn't even have to go to summer school.
Right.
And so she was like, I mean, you might want to think about teaching. Yeah. And then that's when you realize, like, I had to realize that, a lot of teachers aren't experts, but they just have a gift of being able to make someone else understand something. Be able to articulate something, or at least understand the way that he learns, and be able to cater that information to his learning style to make that person, more knowledgeable or whatnot. So, I mean, that, had like just sparked my curiosity, saying something I'm naturally good at. Right. And, then later on, speaking to my government teacher, who was the one who broke down, like, after this long, teachers like me are going to be ready to retire. You're going to be in, prime situations. I mean, when it came down to, like, what I wanted to teach, that was more of a business move. More like, okay, I know special education is going to probably be the most secure spot. Okay. I mean, of course, being a black man in the education system, it's kind of, but special education ain't going nowhere, Sure. Especially how they're acknowledging different mental health issues and learning disabilities, and understanding why students aren't learning at the pace that they want them to, or they expect them to, and going from, and you can probably tell, like, back when we were in school, that special ed was that one class. Now, if you go into schools, it could be 30% of the school might be listed as special education, but most of the kids are in class with everyone else and just getting the little assistance they need. You have different special education classes that are subcategories, like autism, and then there's intellectual disabled. You got different different aspects of it. So and then that comes down to research, right? And as you can see, America, as a country is exploring mental health a little bit more. Yeah. So so like it all kind of trends a little bit, and it was again, it was just one of those things that I was like, I can see that. Of course, my son being autistic himself kind of gave me that extra passion for special education and all that, but I mean, it. Like I said, I could honestly say, like, when I was going to school, I kind of knew
what it was.
What? Now, that, like I said, don't get me wrong, I still were in class with people who didn't understand, what they truly wanted to do, and like sitting, in class thinking, okay, if I just learn this much, then automatically it'll make money, versus I actually have to have something, like a passion for something, or a skill at something.
And I'm gonna tell you one of the things that I kind of, and again, like people say I'm a conspiracy theorist, right? One of the main classes that I always remembered in high school I took was called MOM. It was called Math of Money, right? That was the class I remember the most. Why? Because it taught me about real life. Man, it taught me how to write checks, how to balance a checkbook, how to pay bills. It brought all that real life stuff into perspective as a young teen. Then they took that class away, right? The reason I feel they took that class away is because they want to grow students to be financially irresponsible. So again, how I see it is like, if you have to, when I first started working at Lone Star, right? I don't know if I should say the college, but when I first started working there, I was an advisor. Okay, and one of the main things that I saw as an advisor was, of course, you had students come in that did not know what they want to do, right? They didn't have not one clue. Their parents knew what they wanted their kids to do, but the student didn't know what they wanted to do. The parents was willing to break the bank on sending their kids to top-notch universities so they can get a nursing degree or be a doctor or whatever the case may be. But the student was like, man, I just want to do photography. Art. Yeah, I want to do photography. And so, but without that piece of saying, okay, look, this is real life experiences right here. This is reality. When you take that away, then you have a line of students that don't know what they want to do. They don't know how to do basic life skill stuff financially. So they're like, all right, I'll just take what's ever available. And then that's where that time wasted comes in. And then that's where the institutions, the bigger institutions, lock you in for these loans. So that's always been my perspective, because I have 2 degrees, right? I have one in marketing and one in visual communications, okay? Probably made more money on the side than working in any job I've ever had, right? So, and that's just freelancing. Like, I'm talking about, I was freelancing for Toyota, doing their pictures, the whole nine, video, you know what I'm saying? I made more money that way than anything else. But again, when you take out that piece of the puzzle where, in high school, where it teaches you how to balance your books and how to, live life and, how to do things sound as a responsible adult, going forward, you don't see how that affects you because you never had it. So, and I say that to say this, like, if I didn't know how to balance a checkbook or whatever, right, I wouldn't know how to keep my finances in order. So I can say for myself, like, I know that I made more money this way than that way. So I can honestly say that, you know what, yes, I may have 2 degrees, but I did the research to say, you know what, there's not a lot of people hiring to be a full-time photographer. There's not a lot of people hiring me to do video work at the time when I graduated, right? Only thing you could do at that time was, like, people were shooting videos. All I knew was I wanted to be like Spike Lee. All I know is I wanted to be like Hype Williams, right? So it was like, cool, I'm going to give me a camera, I'm going to buy me some lenses, and I'm going to make it work, right? And so I did. But then it was like, all right, at some point it's going to come to an end. So what are you going to have to fall back on? So I was like, you know what, let me go back to school. So I went back to school, and it was like, okay, I got my 2nd degree. So now but I did that after researching and finding out what it is that I wanted to do. And again, but that is because I was taught to, when you, like in that math and money class, it was like you have to sit down and evaluate everything. Now they pull that from the school system. A lot of these students come out and don't, like I said, don't know how to critically think about everything. And they just go out and they do, and then they react later after they fell on their face, basically. So when I look at, the system as far as like paying for education, or, it, to some degree, I see it as it's kind of like a form of slavery in a sense, financially, right? It's the one way I keep you locked in. Like I bought a house 5 years ago, right? I think about like, why on God's green earth did I buy this damn house? Because now I'm locked in for 30 years to you. You know what I'm saying? Man, it's like, and then you took that, you based my mortgage off of not even my full amount of money. You base it off of what I get after. You base it off of what I get, you know what I'm saying, before taxes, not after taxes. So you already set me up for the okie-doke to begin with. And I think they do the same thing with student loans and then do everything else. So that's why I say when you see people that say, okay, well, I don't vote or I don't do this, and it's kind of like, I understand. I mean, I voted, but I'm saying like I understand both sides of the fence because I kind of been on both sides of the fence. So I get it when people say I don't believe in the system. I'd rather do more work in my own community to make it work than to rely on somebody else to try to make it work for me, knowing that they're not going to make it work, knowing that all they're doing is it's just a carriage and pony show. They just flaunting around and and they say, well, hold them responsible for when you put them in office. But is that really something feasible that on a state level that you can do on a government level to hold somebody accountable for what they said they're going to do during the campaign? So it does. There is some gray areas there. There is some battling on both sides of the fence that does get tough. But like I said, I understand that argument when people say they didn't vote. And it sucks because, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, our ancestors died for their right to vote. But we get played a lot of times. We get played a lot of times with that. You know what I'm saying? Which is the same reason why, black folks have been conditioned to think, you know what, I need to vote Democratic all the time. And they do that so much, you know what I'm saying, because they've been conditioned to do it, that they don't really research what they're voting for. They just go in there, hit that one little button. Oh, I'm good. I done did my job. I was like, no, you didn't. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, it's just one of those things where, like I said, I understand both sides of the argument on that.
Well, I mean, yeah, you kind of like open up the idea too that for so many who work so much and they're not as informed as others that are, pushing, we need to vote and we need to get out there and we need to do that. I mean, how do you tell that person that works over 40, 50 hours a week to barely make it, who doesn't have time to go home and turn on the news or, find out which information outlet is actually true to even understand what I'm voting for and all this and that, and I still gotta go to work. Or the one that can't even take off for work to go vote because voting's not a holiday to where people can just all get off and, like a paid holiday to where we can just all go vote without worrying about, missing that
jeopardy of losing your job
and stuff like that. So, and again, of course, the argument that where you got early voting and you got, just pretty much a big time span to actually taking care of that. But again, though, I mean, what, if, like I said, if they do not know what they're voting on, are we even doing our civic duty by just blindly pushing the button when we show up?
No, we're not. And again, but you got to remember this though. You know the old saying, it takes a village, right? The community that which you stay in has to be an actual functioning, working community to where there is involvement within that dynamic. Let's be honest, a lot of stuff in the inner cities and urban communities, there's really not that working dynamic. So it's pretty much you fending for yourself, man. You know what I'm saying? What I like to call the running of the ants. It's just basically what it is. And I think that's why that so many people don't get out there and vote, or don't take that seriously, or don't, take certain things of aspects of everyday life and say, let me apply it. Because, again, yeah, it's like I feel, what I'm saying? I'm struggling by myself. I'm working 50 hours a week. I got 2 kids.
Right.
I'm riding this car that's on its last leg, and so it all that plays into factor, and everybody sometimes like to ignore that, but that's actually a true dynamic into why some people feel that way.
Yeah. So I know past couple of shows we definitely touched a lot on like mental health, especially when we did our little segment on Kanye and wilding out and doing things, and how do you feel like that aspect affects I guess the community? Because even you had said, when kind of shook you. You was like, how long you been diabetic? Like, you didn't even know, right? And so that's physical health.
Yeah.
How much attention do we all pay to mental health that we barely even pay attention to physical health all the time, right? So how important is mental health, or do you feel the effects of it, of the Black community?
Say, bro, I tried to commit suicide twice. And that feeling of like nobody cares, nobody understands the situation, like the other side of the fence really doesn't understand the struggle. And I sometimes I really hate trying to, making it a black and white thing, but bro, they don't understand that side of the fence. Like, they don't understand getting up, going to work, busting your ass every day, and not seeing anything from it, right? When TV shows you what this is what life is supposed to be. This is the American dream, and they put that roadblock in front of you so you can't have that American dream, but you can help me get to that American dream, right? So it does weigh a lot on your psyche, to the point where you're like, I'm not doing enough. And then if you get capped out, right? You get capped out and it's still not enough. Okay? It plays on your mind to like, what am I doing? I think about some of the single moms out there, right? They got two kids or whatever, 2 different baby daddies, right? And they struggling, and they really out there getting it, but it's not enough, right? And that the mental health part of everything, I don't think we talk about that enough in the Black community, because it always comes with a stigma. Oh, you just crazy, don't worry about it, this and that, right? One of my good friends, Big Sarge, he talks about mental health a lot, right? Because he spent time in the military, and he deals with his everyday struggles, and then with the passing of his wife and everything. I look at him and I'm like, dang, bro, like, you strong as hell, because you always look at your situation like, it's the end of the world. And then somebody else comes along like, damn, like, I thought I had the end of the world, but theirs is like way worse than mine. But according to how you value your situation, on a mental level, it's the same. Yeah. Because we can't figure out how to process what's going on at the moment. So, I look at Kanye, right? Kanye didn't start flipping out until when he lost his mom, right? That's when everything really started taking a turn for the left, right? Is when he lost his mom. That's when everything was like, you know what? I'm gonna go off and do this, and this, and this, and this, and it's like, bro, because he really didn't go and seek counseling or even to give himself time to grieve for the loss of his mom. So I think that even within the Black community, it's the same way. We don't have time to actually relax and grieve and say, you know what, let me take a breath for this situation. You know, I remember when I lost both of my uncles, you know what I'm saying? It was like, I had to go to work the next day. So it was like, I didn't have time to even process that, or, you know what I'm saying? I didn't even have time to be there for my pops, because my pops just lost both his brothers. So, you know, and you think about that daily struggle for somebody in the city or in an urban community that sees death or sees, you know, destruction on a regular basis, and they have no outlet to express themselves to, or have any right way of processing what has just happened. I mean, you think about, we talked about how the security guard, you know, got shot, right? So you think about everybody that was in that area, right? Are they going to process that properly? You get what I'm saying? And that's a big deal. That's something that nobody really thinks about. You know, what was it, Alton Sterling, right? You think of who, everybody that was around, you know, that witnessed that, the guy that recorded. Like, where do you go after that to say, I need to talk about what I just witnessed? But that never gets talked about. You know what I'm saying? Because for that point in time, in the moment, it is just what was going on in that video, right? So everything, it just doesn't, it affects everybody. But like I said, I don't think the black community has set itself up to where it can be talked about and expressed and explained and dealt with. So we hold everything in. Like I said, it that's one piece that, as a whole, we do have to fix. We really do.
Where do you think that fix gonna come from?
You know what? I don't know, and all I can say is, it does have to happen at the round table, at home. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it does have to start there. You know, it has to start where, you know, parents that have young kids that sit down and have to explain to them what's going on. And I think a lot of people like to sugarcoat or try to hide their kids from certain things. And I get that. But when they grow up and they've been hidden so long from real life, when they get into the real world, they don't know how to process real world with real life issues. So, and we like to theme it as, he's just spoiled. He doesn't, you know what I'm saying? And so it becomes terms like that we kind of like, we just code it. We don't deal with it, and we just find a way to mask it. So again, there's things that we have to do as a community that starts at home, that we have to say, let me make sure that my child knows what's going on. When it comes to things of unarmed black men getting shot, or Hispanic men getting choked out in the parking lot of the gas station, like, that has to be explained to kids, you know what I'm saying, to where they understand, like, hey, look, as a young black man, you have to be prepared for X, Y, and Z, even though you may not want to. But unfortunately, that's the way of the world right now. Because I mean, you think about it. You think about when slavery was on and popping, right? I still have this same mindset to this day. Like, I don't look a white woman in her face. I don't look her in the eyes, right? Because my mom grew up in Memphis, Tennessee. That was one thing I remember my grandmama told me when I went to visit. Don't look a white woman in her eyes. And as a kid, you're trying to process that, like, what does that mean, right? Because my grandma was like, well, I don't want anything to happen to you. You know what I'm saying? So you might, you know what I'm saying? So you think about it, like, the course of our history as a whole, we have always had to deal with that. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think, as a whole, we have really processed that. And we have actually dealt with it. You know what I'm saying? So, but it keeps getting masked in the community, so we don't ever deal with it. So we carry on this anger every year, every generation, and then we don't understand why other people don't understand our struggles, because we really don't understand our struggles ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So it's a curse, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? So like I said, it has to start from the round table at home. When you say, son, daughter, let's talk. And when you don't, you set them up for the failure later on in life.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely tough, especially if that never happened to you. if you would never sat down and had that conversation, then
if it was never explained to me, bro, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, how can you see yourself being able to
explain to somebody else?
Because I mean, every generation is different.
Yep.
And especially like a lot of us, we came from that generation that you don't ask questions, you don't question me.
Don't question nothing.
You know, so if I didn't tell you about it, it don't happen.
Yeah.
And how dare you ask me if it actually happened if I ain't tell you? You know what I mean? I mean, we just came from an era of obedience, not free thinking, not being able to question or ask or open up your mind. It's you are judged based on your ability to do what I tell you to do. Yeah. That's how you were a good kid or a bad kid.
And see, this younger generation now, they're starting to break those rules and that barrier. You know what I'm saying? So again, it's a gift and a curse because how it's done is probably not always the right way, but they're opening up the door to like, you know what? I have a different process on how a different way I think. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I need to express that, and that's the good side of it. But again, like I said, it all starts from that round table at home.
Man. Yeah, man, we can go all day. Yeah. You know? Like, seriously, we can go all day. Yeah, wrap it up. like both of them. Like, time to go.
Cool, yeah.
Oh, man. But, man, like I said, man, number one, man, thank you for having me, man. We went through some topics tonight. Man, thank you for showing up. Two, man, definitely appreciate the support for picking us up, giving us a shot,
most
giving us a chance. So, you know, hopefully his relationship gets stronger and pockets get fatter, and you know, we all happy. But yeah, man. Before we go, man, let's just remind the people of where they need to tune in at, where they can catch you at, and
powerhits281.com. Same thing across all social media. Powerhits281. Stream 24/7. Monday through Friday, Cheryl Underwood from 8 to 12. And then Crisco Kid Block Party every Saturday from 8 to 11. And we have some cool some cool DJ mix shows throughout the week. And of course, you guys are added in a rotation on Sundays.
Nice.
So you know what I'm saying. So it's definitely a great dynamic that I'm happy to have, man. So make sure y'all tune in. You just catch us on the TuneIn app, or you can get the Power Hits 281 radio app in the Android store, Apple Store, Play Store, Android Play Store. So definitely.
All right, before I let you go, we can't let you off the hot seat too early. I have to hit you with the same question we ask everybody who's sitting down next to me.
All right. Let's see what this is.
You on the desert island, you stranded, and you have 5 artists that you can take their entire musical catalog with you to listen to. And that's it.
Oh, okay.
Who would those artists, and again, catalog meaning anything they touched?
Anything they
touch. So, who would your top 5 be?
Top 5. Number 1 would be Biggie.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
One would be Biggie. Number 2, Wu-Tang.
Ooh.
Number 3, Tribe Called Quest.
Ooh.
Number 4, I'm gonna say Dr. Dre.
Oh.
Okay. Then number 5, Nas.
No 2PAC, man.
I wasn't a big Tupac
no
fan back in the day, man.
Oh, man. Show canceled. He's undoing the wires.
He packing up his stuff, everybody, man. He didn't wrap me up, unplug the mic.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
He don't want to do it no more, man. Oh, man.
Shut the studio down.
Y'all probably won't hear this podcast then, man.
Oh, man. Nah, man, they definitely got to hear it because I think, to me, man, and now speaking with Trey, producers and all of that, like, people need to see the other side of folk, man. Yeah. I mean, it's more, like you said, it's more to keep Greer than Pop 281. I mean, dude went through a lot, struggled with this, and then we finally got 281, you know what I mean? So, you know, a lot of times when I get people on, man, I feel like my job is to bring out that part that no one ever,
much
you know
respect.
what I mean, get to
Respect.
discuss politics. You get to see what he know about the issues with the black community, and like I said, we can go on and on and on about that one, man. So
Cool.
But yeah, man, that's
All right.
This was.
Well, I appreciate it, brother. I appreciate it.
Oh, yes. 2 weeks. We're gonna be off getting fat next week, and we'll probably call us over to have some meetings and discuss some future plans, because he don't let nobody sleep. We stay working, man. Be on the group me at 2 a.m. Here's a new format of how we gonna shift the room. Trey, man. Shout out to Trey, man. Like I said, he does not let you sleep, man. But yeah, man, we'll be back in about 2 weeks, man, and
The Sit Down is brought to you by PowerHits281.com.
This is a Always Press Record production.